Welcome to SkillOn. In this series of training videos in the Smart Live Professional English programme, we're going to focus on meeting skills. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Julia Unwin, and I will be your tutor in this series of training videos. I've been living and working in Italy for a number of years, and I've seen the increase in the need for English in meetings in European contexts, but also in international contexts. And for those of you who don't feel 100% confident with your English, meetings can be quite stressful. So our objective in these training videos is to give you some tips and some guidelines to increase your confidence so that you will participate without headaches and with a smile in these meetings. So, first of all, I'd like to give you an overview of what we're going to be looking at in this series of videos. First of all, we're going to be looking at some ways to prepare for meetings. This is a fundamental, essential step for the meeting to be effective and to use the limited time you'll have in the best way possible, and for everybody to be informed and ready to speak and say what they have to say. In the second training video, we're going to look at approaches to starting and managing a meeting, to get off to a good start so that everybody feels comfortable and again can participate with a good feeling, because I think the emotive aspect is important too in meetings, the human factor. The third training video will focus on effective ways to be proactive in meetings. So here we're going to be looking at some expressions, some language, to give you the language to say all the things that you want to say and to check if there's something that you haven't understood as well as you want. The fourth and final video, training video, is going to focus on online meetings and telephone situations. I think all of you have seen the rapid increase in the number of online meetings in recent months, and it's increasingly important to see the opportunities but the challenges of this type of meeting, so that again you can use them as effectively as possible. And in that fourth video we'll also look at a way of summarising a project and also ways to end both online, in-presence meetings and telephone situations as well. Right, so let's begin. First of all, as I said, we're going to focus on preparing the meeting. And as I'm sure you all know, the preparation for the meeting is fundamental. In particular, one thing we're going to look at are some key words. For example, one step in preparing your meeting is going to be to set or to agree on or to define the topics that you're going to talk about, the key points that you're going to discuss. And in English, we refer to this as the agenda of the meeting with the different items. In Italian, we'd use a different word, l'ordine del giorno. So in English, the agenda is the Italian ordine del giorno. And as I'm sure as you agree, defining and circulating the agenda in good time is fundamental for an efficient meeting. Also, another key point is going to be setting a date for the meeting, and then you're going to check in your diary to see if you're free or not. And there, the English word diary in Italian is agenda. So this is why we're looking at these two words, because to some extent they're what we call false friends. Good. So now we can move on to focus on an aspect of pronunciation which frequently causes problems even with people with a good level of English. So we talked about setting a date for the meeting. Look at the pronunciation. The final E, D-A-T-E, you don't hear. We talk about the date of the meeting. So the date could be October 15 is a very simple way of specifying the date. The British normal way would be saying October the 15th. However, increasingly, we're using the simple American language. October 15, June 12, November 16. It's simpler, and wherever we can simplify, life's better for everybody. So now let's look at the second pronunciation, because in many meetings you're going to talk about numbers, and frequently these numbers will include statistics. And one term we use to refer to these is the data. In British English we would say data. In American English the pronunciation changes a bit, they say the data. So it's good to be able to recognize both. So we want to present the data, or in English, the data, or we need to present the data. Good. So now, once you've got your good pronunciation, let's move on to look at the next aspect in your preparation for meetings. And I'm sure you all agree that a fundamental aspect in the preparation for meetings is preparing, selecting and circulating the documents to all participants so that they have time to be as well informed as possible before a meeting begins on the key topics which are going to be discussed. So, what type of documents are you going to include? So one could be some reports. Look at the pronunciation, report, not report, report. So the report, hopefully a short report, or if it's a long report, it's helpful to have a short summary at the beginning for people who really are extremely busy. Another type of document could be background information to fill people in, and so people can be as well informed as possible about the context. This is very important for people to be able to make good decisions and to participate actively. So also it's a good idea to circulate these documents at least 1 week in advance. You may think 1 week is too long, but for many people who are busy, they need about a week to be able to make time to prepare properly for the meeting. Two more documents which are also useful are short summaries. So in Italian, un sintesi. Very often, again, for people who don't have a lot of time, it's very useful to have a short summary to give information about a particular aspect which is important. And inevitably, the numbers, the latest figures. That word figures is a useful word in meetings. It's another way of saying numbers, le cifre. Again, we're talking about the data and statistics, all the different numbers. So these are needed as well. So now let's move on to look at how we can present the numbers in these various documents and in our conversation during the meeting. One very useful way of presenting numbers or presenting data is in percentages. For example, rainfall in the last 4 months has increased by 5% compared to last year. So it's a very clear way of comparing data in different situations and presenting a picture. Pronunciation, percentage, 40%, 50%, 25%. Good. And here are 3 types of graphics that can be used in your way of presenting numbers. So first of all, bar charts can be visually very helpful in blocks to show perhaps month by month over a period of time the different trends in, for example, number of people employed, number of people unemployed, number of people in training, month by month. Also pie charts, and pie charts are particularly useful for presenting percentages, but they really do give a visual view of a situation. It's immediately clear what the situation is. So the pie charts could be the types of startups, of young people entering the work, what type of employment they are in. So it gives an idea of the trends. And then also line graphs can be very useful to compare performance perhaps with different approaches in different regions or in different countries. Again, very clear ways of presenting information, which I'm sure all of you already use effectively. Right, so now we are going to move on and focus on the context of the meeting, because I'm sure many of you will have been in a situation where you arrive at a meeting and then you're surprised because maybe there are more people or less people than you were expecting. So it's very important to know what is the context of the meeting, who are going to be the main players in the meeting, who are the people going to be involved, the main speakers, for example, and what their roles are, which organisations are going to be involved in the meeting, and even if they're not going to be present in the meeting, who are the interested parties? That's another way of saying the stakeholders, so the people who are going to be affected by what we're deciding. Good. So these are important so that we're focusing our mind, so that we're very clear about the numbers of people who are going to be involved in the meeting and who they are, where they come from and what their role is. So next, we're going to move on to look here at fixing the date for a meeting. You can say to arrange a meeting, you can say to organise a meeting, or to fix a date or arrange a date for a meeting or an appointment. And we're going to look at some simple language to do this. Imagine that you're needing to do this with a European partner or with an international body or organisation. So a simple question to start the ball rolling. Are you free on January 15, using the American version, or the British version? Are you free on January the 15th? And that's a very simple, clear question. Remember, asking questions in English, we need to use the inversion, because many Italian people say, you are free on January 15, but remember to use the inversion. And it's difficult, I know, because it's so different to the Italian structure of questions. The person maybe is not free on that date. A simple way of saying no is simply, no, I'm not, or to be more polite, I'm afraid I'm not, which doesn't mean ho paura. It's another way of saying, I'm sorry, I'm not free, or I'm in a meeting that day, but you can make a counter proposal. What about, and then you give another date. What about 16 January? Or what about the 16th or the 17th? You can use what about or equally how about. These are really nice because it's just two words, but you can add different options and it's very easy. The pronunciation is easy, so they're great expressions to use. So the response to that, if the person is still not free, could be, I'm sorry, we have a prior commitment. That's quite a formal way of saying no. So it means they're already busy, or you can say a previous engagement, but that's quite old-fashioned now. Prior commitment is a very formal way, as I said, or we have another meeting that day, or I'm afraid I'm not free. But again, you can introduce the possibility of another date. And here's some language. Would January 18 be convenient? Or again, using the English, the 18th, because at that point you don't need to repeat the month. Or would the 18th be okay for you, more informal? Or be suitable idoneo. There are lots of different ways. And if the person agrees, a simple way is yes, but just to say yes on its own is a bit abrupt. So you can carry on and saying the 18th would be fine, or the 18th would be perfect, or the 18th would be good. All of those are okay. Good. So now you have fixed the date, and that's a very important step. What we're going to look at now is some of the prepositions which are used in talking about dates of meetings and times. You may say this is far too simple for your level, and I know probably for many of you this will be basics which you know perfectly well. However, many people I find do get confused a little bit here. It's not a big problem, but let's take this opportunity just to clarify. So let's look first of all at on. So we've organised a meeting on March the 1st, or the American on March 1. So we use on with a specific date on the calendar, and also on a day of the week. So you could say on Monday. Now I'm going to continue here because so many people get confused between martedì and giovedì. So while we're at it, you can say we've organised a meeting on Tuesday, March 2, or Tuesday, March the 2nd, or on Wednesday, on Thursday, and Friday or Saturday. There we go. While we were here, we did a review of the days of the week. So on with a specific calendar date and the day of the week. Next, we're going to look at at. At we use particularly for times. So at 10 a.m., so 10 in the morning, and sometimes you specify that is 11 a.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. So at with a specific time. Then we prefer to hold meetings, interesting that use of the word, to hold a meeting or to organise meeting or to have meetings, and then in a period of time we say in the mornings or in the afternoon. In is a good preposition that we use for a block of time. I use the word aquarium, so you could say in the morning, in the afternoon, in March, in April, in June, or even for the year as well, in 2022, in 2023. Right, now a key point here is how long will the meeting last? And this I think is a very important point, because the duration of a meeting more and more has become fundamental, because people have less time and people want to know, particularly if people participating in the meeting come from the north of Europe, where people really set aside 1 hour for a meeting and then 2 minutes after they already have a conference call with somebody else. So this question is important. How long will it last? The verb to last, durare. The answer, it's scheduled to last for an hour, from 10 to 11, or from 10 until 11. That verb there, you can say it's scheduled or it's scheduled. Both of them are okay. So here we've looked at an interesting point to bear in mind, the length of the meeting. And we've clarified some use of prepositions. So now at this point we can move on and we can look at the key aspect of a meeting, which is the aim. And that word aim is a very important word. The aim of the meeting is the objective of the meeting. It's the goal. It's in Italian you would say, yes, scopo. And in English we don't say scope. Scope means something totally different. It's everything that's included in a project. It's I parametri di qualcosa. So here we're going to define the main aim of the meeting, which is important for everybody. So we're going to look at some possibilities. One is planning for the future. So the aim of the meeting is to plan a future event, to plan a new program, a new initiative. So this could be one focus of the meeting. Another type of meeting, which is a very important and interesting type of meeting, I think, is where you discuss the results of a past event, a past initiative, or a past project. Very useful to look at what went according to plan and to identify what were the main successes and the achievements, but also to identify the things that went okay, but that could have been better, where there is room for improvement. Because it's very useful, I think, to do a sort of debriefing and to use experience and a past event to analyse, reflect, so that you can correct some things and improve for the future and change some things for the better, for everybody's better, for the benefit of everybody. So as not to repeat some, not necessarily mistakes, but some things which could be improved. Right, now let's move on to look at two other types of meetings. Okay, so another type of meeting which those of you who are involved in European projects, you'll be involved in these meetings to update EU partners on progress. These types of meetings are often a little bit different from other meetings because quite often they're one-day meetings, so they last a bit longer. But they're fundamental in order for a European project to reach its objectives. And finally, and absolutely last but not least, the goal, which is another way of saying the aim, as we said, the goal of some of your meetings is to find a solution to a problem. And here it's quite difficult sometimes because often there's an element of urgency in these meetings. Maybe the Civil Protection Agency have flooding, inondazione, in an area between the border with another country. Maybe there's been an earthquake. Maybe there is a forest fire. There can be all kinds of problems where you need to find solutions to problems. And so these meetings are quite delicate because often there's an emergency and you need to be very proactive in listening hard and trying to find from all the possible solutions which is the best way to go on. Right, so at this point we've concluded this first training video. We've looked, and I hope you feel ready and prepared and that you're able to prepare well for meetings. And so in the next training video, we're going to be looking at how to actually start the meeting, making everybody feel comfortable to participate as well as they can. Thank you very much.